A WWE Hall of Fame member just brought back up an interesting Bloodline-related topic. So we'll take a look at those comments along with other Roman Reigns-related topics. We'll also take a look at an update to AJ's movie and more. Let's start things off with this brief update to AJ's movie. We quickly discussed it when the news first came out a few months ago, but AJ Mendez and Amiee Garcia were confirmed to co-writing a film script. AJ and Amiee have worked together on countless projects, but this really was their first major film script. The film is Blade of the 47 Ronin. It's a sequel to 2013's 47 Ronin, which actually featured Keanu Reeves. Reeves won't be in the sequel since it takes place 300 years later, but it's still nice to know that he was a part of the movie franchise in some way. The film is said to be a Netflix original and be released sometime in 2022. No actual release date quite yet, but AJ and Amiee did take to their Instagram stories to show off all the new gear and merchandise that they were already receiving for the film. So maybe the release date is creeping up, maybe it's a little later in the year, but AJ and Amiee Garcia are both very excited about their first major Netflix movie. So we'll have to see how the rollout of that film continues to go. If you look at wrestling news, watch wrestling-related theories videos, or hang out on wrestling Twitter, chances are you most definitely ran into the idea of a woman being added to the Bloodline. It's been a popular fan theory for a long time, and we discussed a lot of possibilities for that theory over the months. We talked about how Nia Jax could have been the woman for the group before her release. She directly connected to the Bloodline through the Rock side of the family, so it definitely could have worked logic-wise. So that was one of the ideas that got a lot of fans behind at one point. Then, the theory moved on to Naomi. She's not a direct family member, but everyone figured that she could still be a part of the faction since she's married to one of the members of the Bloodline. Naomi was actually referenced in the Bloodline story extremely early on in 2020. During Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso, one of the stipulations that Roman laid out for the Usos was that if they don't beat him and acknowledge him, that the both of them and their wives would be kicked out of the family. So not a direct name drop, but Roman definitely referenced Naomi there and threatened to kick her out if Jimmy and Jey didn't give in. Naomi even had a funny tweet go out around the same time that said something along the lines of, "I'm just at home, what I gotta do with it?" But Roman won that match, Usos fell in line, and Naomi hasn't been referenced by any of the Bloodline members since. Then, most recently, we discussed how logic and storyline-wise, it was pretty bizarre that Jimmy hasn't at least brought up Naomi's Sonya Deville struggles to Roman in any matter. For a family that's supposed to be very close and help each other out dearly, it's just a bit weird that no help or even conversation has been offered to Naomi over all these months. But that brings us to Booker T, who recently weighed in once again on the idea of a woman joining the Bloodline and shared his thoughts on the popular fan theory. Booker T had this to say on the Bloodline during a recent Hall of Fame podcast episode. Quote, "My thing is, with the Bloodline, you've still got so much more that you can add to it. I say, a female member could join in and make that thing even more powerful, really making the Bloodline a mafioso faction. These guys could really take this thing to another level. Factions are something. I think they've got to have longevity in order to be really called a faction. The reason I say that from a faction perspective is, when I look at the Clique, I look at the NWO, I look at the Four Horsemen, and those factions have longevity." End quote. So Booker T does have a few points there. With the way WWE has been throwing in so many conflict and issues with the Bloodline, it has some fans already discussing the possible end to the Bloodline. Like we even discussed, if Roman loses the title, Roman isn't going to blame himself, he's going to blame the Usos for not being there to help. So everyone assumes that Roman losing the Universal title would basically result in the end of the Bloodline, since there'll be so much rage from Roman's side of things. Everyone is wondering if we're coming up to the end of the Bloodline together. But Booker believes that there's still a lot of story to tell with him. And he claims that if you really want to be known as a faction, that there has to be longevity to it. The Bloodline has been around for a few years on and off, but this version of the heel Bloodline has only been together for barely a year. Jimmy returned in mid-2021, And that's when it really came together as a unit again, so not even a year together as heels. So, they could throw in that one woman into the group and continue their dominance, and add even more stories around the Bloodline. They definitely could. Another thing that Booker commented on was the idea of them facing off against each other and explained why he can't buy into it. He had this to say, quote, "There's just no need for the family on family. I think we've seen that enough because they're family. It's hard to actually really go out there and make people believe that you're really hating each other. You're family. You've got to see each other at Christmas, Thanksgiving, holidays, so come on. It's not something that you can really sink your teeth into." End quote. So that's definitely true. Family is family. So despite how many times you get into it, you'll see each other at gatherings or make up along the way. So that's why Booker says he's not intrigued by Bloodline on Bloodline drama. But at the same time, you can argue that one of Roman's greatest stories during the Universal title reign was the family drama feud with Jey Uso at the very start of the title reign. Something about that feud stands out more amongst the rest of the Roman stories. The feud with Jey just felt personal. It was memorable. It really set up Roman's new character and told us what to expect from him at that time. This man was beating up on his cousins. It really did just set that whole story up perfectly. So to Booker's point, sure, sometimes it's not believable and you really don't sink your teeth into it. Such as Nikki and Bree's split. It could have been something special, but the story behind it was poor. But then you look at Roman versus Jey, and as long as the story is rich, you can really have the chance to do something really memorable like they did together. If the Bloodline split is anything like Roman versus Jey, then maybe it really would be just an interesting point and pull a lot of people in. So we'll see how the future plans turn out for the Bloodline. But what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.